morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here. As it was said, you all came here, became the champion. That was the first step that you took. So thank you for coming. And now that we have all gotten some context about the issue itself, and you are starting to learn about the resources and the purpose of this event, let us also now take some time to have some valuable insights from our panel presenters today. They are here. I have had personally the pleasure to work with them all in different capacities, and I'm very much looking forward to learn from all of them today again along with you. So, but before we do that, I would like to welcome all the panelists, and I'd like to take a moment to do the introduction for all of them. And I'll begin with Kim. So, Kim is the CEO of Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter. She has a master's degree in social work from the University of Calgary with a clinical focus on domestic violence. Kim has led Quest, which is Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter, to develop and/or champion many of the innovative programs and services based on violence prevention programs. She's a co-author of Shelter 2.0 initiative, which is a discussion paper on how to better enhance the impact of women's shelters to help end violence in the community. And she also serves as a co-chair of the Calgary Domestic Violence Collective. She is a winner of many awards, including the McKillop Award, the Inspiration Award from the Government of Alberta, and also most recently the Social Enterprise Award. And now I would like to move on to Glenn Andruschik. He is from Calgary Police Services, as you can see from the uniform. Glenn joined the Calgary Police Service in 2005 and worked as a patrol constable for 5 years. In the spring of 2010, Glenn transitioned to covert surveillance, working in the Strike Force Unit until 2016. In late 2016, Glenn moved back to patrol and was promoted to the rank of sergeant, supervising a 10-person patrol team for 2 years. In 2019, Glenn won a competition to lead the domestic conflict response team and coordinate the Equally Safe program that I'm also privileged to be a part of and work with him hand in hand. In 2022, Glenn was placed in the long-term acting staff sergeant role of the domestic conflict unit and has been passionately working in the area of violence prevention and intervention, which I witness every day along with my team at SEVA because we work directly with them. And now moving on to Andrea Silverstone. Andrea Silverstone is the Chief Executive Officer at SAGES, Domestic Violence Prevention Society, an organization that is committed to breaking the cycle of violence for individuals, organizations, and communities. Andrea is a registered social worker and is a very passionate sector leader, a mediator, a collaborator, and an advocate when it comes to the development of and implementation of innovative programs and that addresses bullying, violence prevention, and domestic abuse, all with a very community-centered approach. She also serves as a chair of Calgary Domestic Violence Collective, and is also the winner of many awards, including the Jewish Family and Child Agency's Goodman Award, Inspiration Award from the Government of Alberta, Resolve Excellence in Community Services, and these are just a few that I have named. They have many more awards. So I have personally had the immense pleasure of working with all of them in different capacities and learning new things from all of them about the violence prevention, about being a leader in the community. And I'm thrilled again to learn more from them today. And now, without any further delay, let's dive in straight into the questions. So Kim, my first question is to you. So statistics indicate that, every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. I know I see a lot of jaw-dropping, but these are real stats. Aboriginal women are killed at a rate of 6 times higher than non-Indigenous women. Immigrant women with language, culture barriers, and lack of economic independence are so much more vulnerable to domestic violence. Girls are 1.5 times more likely to experience abuse than boys. So these are truly, I can see from the reaction from some of the folks here,
that these are some really jaw-dropping stats. And COVID-19 pandemic has also highlighted the issue globally. And as we heard in the video as well, that United Nations has termed this issue as a global shadow pandemic, actually. So, and at SIVA itself, we saw a total of 57% increase, which is so huge. We were also shocked internally to see those numbers. So the number of clients accessing this. So, and the rate of domestic violence is increasing, is on the rise. But what we see right now is only the tip of the iceberg, because we also learned from the statistics that the 70% of the numbers are not even reported. So, Kim, my first question is to you then. What are your experiences in relation to the rise of domestic violence from a shelter perspective, and what are some of the unique efforts that Quest is making to tackle this issue?
All right. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. I'm quite honored to be here speaking with SIWA, who is one of our very valued partners in the work that we do in the community. In terms of what we're seeing, first of all, I would like to say only 5% of the clients at the Calgary Women's of Mercy Shelter actually come through shelter. So we work with over 15,000 people every year. But what we've noticed since the, well, I won't say the end of the pandemic because we don't know what's next, but in the last quarter, well, in the first quarter of this year, compared to the first quarter of the year before, we experienced 1,000 more crisis calls in that 3-month period than the year before. We also received 1,159 requests for space that we could not accommodate. And when you think about, oh, there we go. Okay. When you think about so many people will disclose first to family or friends before they ever reach the point of calling a crisis line. But 1,000 more people than would normally call us did in that period. I think that what we're seeing is that through the pandemic, dynamics were changed in families, stressors were higher, families that maybe were managing okay before were dealing with new circumstances. The outlets of travel were gone. The social supports were different and changed because we were all distancing and keeping each other safe from the health crisis. But in doing so, we also became more isolated from each other. And so those rates don't surprise me, but they are considerably higher than they were in previous years. I would also add that we are seeing higher levels of danger and higher levels of complexity in who is calling us. And what I mean by that is that when people call our line, we do a danger assessment with people, and that measures the risk of lethality. And we're seeing those numbers are far higher than they were in previous years. And it makes it harder to decide who gets a space, and we're using hotels and we're expanding beyond because we know that the risks are very, very high. And so it's really stretching the system. I would say that Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter is not alone in that. The other shelters are feeling the same types of pressures, and the demand is not lightening up. It seems to be, Andrew and I have talked about this, it's like a tsunami is coming for us with domestic violence. In terms of what we're doing, I think, well, locally, the local agencies and the shelters that are working together to try and understand what is really happening with those numbers and who's calling and how we can best support them when they can't come into shelter. And also do a lot of work around prevention and other types of support. So we've launched, if you haven't seen it yet, there's an initiative called menand.ca, so menand.ca, which is paired with a men's helpline in Calgary. We know that when men are looking for help, they typically look online first. So they're not going to call a helpline initially, but they Google. And so this initiative came out of 6 years of research, and it is there to provide healthy options and relational support and emotional support for men so that they can make healthy choices in their relationships at an earlier point. And it is paired with a men's helpline so that men can call to make different choices earlier on in their relationship. And then we've also launched some digital support and some work in schools at an earlier point for youth who are dealing with those choices around dating relationships and how do you deal with the stress of the pandemic and the mental health crisis that we're seeing in our youth. The community outreach, I think locally agencies are partnering, trying to make sure that we have the reach without the expanded funding, because there isn't any more funding right now. And so agencies are working together, collaborating, and trying to leverage each other's services and support so that we are making sure that we catch who we can. But I would say the numbers right now are very, very high, the complexity is high, and the danger is high. Sorry, that's not a very hopeful message. I should end with a note of hope. But people are working together and collaborating, and I think events like today are doing a lot to raise that awareness, because I think the other piece is that the formal agencies are not what is going to solve this problem alone. It is about working together in community and reaching out to your neighbor and your friends and your colleagues and making sure that that support is there.
No, thank you, Kim. This is indeed eye-opening, and as you said, we heard the shadow pandemic, and you said tsunami is ahead of us, so that clearly tells how much work needs to be done. So my next question is for you, Glenn. Given that, the police plays a key role in the community, particularly when it comes to the reported abuse, and as we see that the number is quite low as compared to be what it should be, but whatever is reported, what kind of approach is the Calgary Police Services taking to combat this rising issue in the community and the tsunami ahead us?
Thanks, Rekha, and thank you for having us here today. And just listening to those bios before we started, I think I'll try and win an award before we come back next year. Kind of got trumped. But we're honored to be here. And one of the things, Calgary Police Service, we've led for several years now in our approach to combating domestic violence. And that starts with education right off the start when our recruits are in class. They get extensive training about domestic violence, and so they're prepared when they go out and they answer calls. Last year we had 19,731 domestic violence calls in the city. So they also get experience very quickly when they're out in patrol. After we go out and we interact with families and use that training to recognize the signs of domestic violence, even though they might not be apparent when we arrive. We go through a very robust risk assessment process similar to Kim, and we're able to direct families to the places that they need help. More importantly, though, today, as you can see on the screen back there, we have our Equally Safe program that we've partnered with. So in 2019, we decided to go from being reactive to domestic violence to being proactive and trying to prevent further domestic violence and stop it before it happens. We partnered with Andrea at SAGES, and we're able to come up with our 5 partnerships with the Awatan Healing Lodge, the Kirby Center, Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter, CWA, and the YW, to form a partnership where we share the information that we're getting from the community and when we go out to those calls, and we're able to pass that information on to our partners who are able to provide direct supports to the families to help them prevent further violence in the home. We've also targeted the perpetrators in that program, and so that we're reaching out to give them supports as well, to be able to show them that they what their actions are doing and how it's affecting their family. And so we're not out there to be the police and always arrest them. We're there to provide support to them and hopefully change their ways.
No, thank you, Glenn, for sharing. This is so inspiring to see that the Calgary Police is shifting its approach from working on its own to a very community-based model, as he talked about the Equally Safe. And we are working hand in hand again daily with them, so to see how much the mutual exchange of the resources, how much police is also open to learn from the community partners. So that is truly inspiring, Glenn. Now, my question is for you, Andrea. Based on what we heard from Glenn and Kim, and given the fact that this issue cannot be tackled by 1 or 2 organizations or even a sector by itself or a system by itself, what is your take on this from a cross-sector collaboration point of view and all the great work that you do?
Thanks so much, Rekha. First of all, I just want to acknowledge all the great work that all three of my co-panelists are doing, because Rekha, you're part of that team of the collaborative work that happens. So one of the things that we know about domestic abuse is it's this complex, pervasive issue in society with these root causes that we actually probably don't really understand. We know that some of them are about equity and about gender-based violence, but we also know that it's also about all of these needs the structural needs that we need met in society around our economic prosperity, around housing, all of those sort of things. And so given that, I would suggest that what domestic violence is a complex issue, also sometimes known as a wicked issue. And so each of our organizations do really great work individually working with clients to help them to move beyond their abusive experiences or to address them. And then I would suggest that programs like Equally Safe are amazing because they collaborate and we work together to try and catch people as they're falling over the waterfall, but we've now, instead of catching them one at a time, we have a net and we're catching everyone together. But what we haven't figured out is how to build some sort of barrier at the top of the waterfall to stop people falling over in the first place. And that's what cross-sector collaboration is. And to me, it's actually just not cross-sector, it's societal collaboration. So what Say Jess is committed to is to holding space for convening and gathering all of the people we need together in the room to make sure that we figure out how to build those barriers at the top of the waterfall so that domestic violence disappears from society. And so some of the ways that we know that we need to do that, one is through cross-sector collaboration. Every single organization that intersects with domestic abuse needs to work together to figure out how are we going to prevent domestic violence from happening, interpersonal violence, gender-based violence. But it's not just us, the sector. We also have to invite business in because they're also part of it. We heard that, and I loved the video that you had at the beginning because businesses are a part of that work. HR people are a part of that work. And then we also know the systems, right? We talk about universal financial benefits. We talk about, you talked about putting people in hotels. Emergency social services pays for that, and that's part of that system. And so we need to make sure child welfare, all of those systems are working together, also in a preventative way. And then society, everyone sitting in the room here, we all have a part to play in eradicating and addressing domestic violence. One of the programs that Say Jess has is called Real Talk, which is a program where we know that the most effective people in addressing domestic violence, because they're the people who are told about the issue, are friends and family members, confidants. 80% of people who are experiencing violence first tell a friend or family member, and we don't have good stats around it, but I would say that probably 60 to 70% of people who are using violence first tell a friend or family member. And so we need to make sure that friend and family know how to recognize domestic violence, empathize, ask the right questions, and just listen. And we know that if they do that, they can be partners in eradicating domestic violence. And so I think it's both cross-sectoral, but it's cross-society as well. And so I think if we do all of those things together, we are going to figure out what's happening at the top of the waterfall. We are going to be able to start creating those barriers so people don't fall over. All of us in this on this panel are part of an initiative called Impact, which is a provincial collective impact initiative that's working with the government of Alberta and the University of Calgary to build an Alberta primary prevention plan to eradicate domestic and sexual violence. My hope is that in 30 years from now, we'll be having a conversation about how we did it, not the pervasiveness of the issue. But I think we have to be really aware that between now and then, we do have a tsunami coming. COVID has had a massive impact, and we have to invest to make sure that we continue to do the work of catching people at the bottom of the waterfall.
Thank you, Andrea, for definitely sharing what is already being done and what could be done and the great work that's happening with the community and what it takes. So I know it was not a part of my question, but I'm so tempted to ask, what is one piece of advice that if you were to give to all the people in this room, the champions that are already here, to what taking that step forward could look like for them to be a part of the solution? So maybe I'll pass it all around to each of you. Sure. Maybe I'll start with Kim.
Sure.
I would say, so Andrea mentioned Real Talk, and Quest also offers a program called Take a Stand. I would say one thing that you could learn is how to be a great social supporter and responder. And Andrea also mentioned how people disclose to friends and family first. That first contact will help determine the help-seeking behavior of that person. So how you respond is actually incredibly important. So if people feel supported and understood and believed, they will carry on with their help-seeking behavior. If not, we can sometimes unintentionally dissuade people, and they can step back and rethink and not reach out for help again for quite some time. So the number one thing you can do is learn how to be a great social support and responder, and how to invite that help-seeking behavior.
From a police perspective, if you hear a neighbor or a friend discloses to you violence, report it to us and let us go in and investigate it and provide those supports. It doesn't always mean that families are going to get broken up and child services is going to come in and take away the family, and that's what people are worried about. They know their neighbors, they know their friends, and they don't speak up because of fear. But there's nothing to fear. We're here to help, and we want to move forward. So please report if you know of someone that's been involved in domestic violence or you hear it in your community.
Great, thank you. Andrea?
I'm going to build off of what Kim said. I think that is the answer that I would challenge everyone in this room sometime in the next year to either take a stand workshop or a real talk workshop. I know that you can go to Quest's website to take your workshops. You can go to Say Jess's website to take our workshops. But I think that every Albertan, every Calgarian should take the workshop so that you know how to be a good informal supporter.
Thank you, all of you, for your expert tips and advice. And my tip would be that, tap into agencies like SIVA. We have multiple other agencies in the room that they are also doing excellent community work in the area of domestic violence prevention. So as Glenn said, report or connect to the agencies like this. It doesn't mean that the families are breaking. I would like to really reiterate that message, because that is the biggest fear we see around. Because there are agencies like all of us here in the room working directly hand in hand with the police to make sure that the families who want to stay together, but the men in the process are also, or the perpetrators in the process, are engaged in education and awareness, and the families are not broken. So we engage the whole family as a unit now to really make sure that we are able to resolve and respond, not react. So that is my tip. I would leave everyone with that today. So on behalf of SIVA and myself and all of us in the community, I would really take this moment to thank all three of you for taking the time to come this morning and sharing all the expert insights, and also doing great work and inspiring all of us to continue doing the great work. So thank you, all of us, to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reka, can I just say, because SIWA didn't get an opportunity to talk about, I think, the work that they're doing, that SIWA does amazing work in the community. I think that the reach that you have in the communities that you reach into is truly inspiring. And I can tell you, and I think I speak for everyone on the panel, we're so glad to be partners with SIWA.
Thank you, Reka, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing their wisdom with us today. We appreciate the time you all took to support the cause and to be here today. Now we'll move to the next part of our event, the Munch and Learn, followed by the walkathon. What this means now is everyone is encouraged to go around the resource booths. I spent several hours talking about it. It sounds like a tongue twister. Booth, easy. Booths is a lot. Yeah, so we encourage you to go around and visit our booths set up by the amazing community partners and who are also providing DV services. Feel free to pick up the refreshments to munch as you go through the booths as well. For all those who will be joining us for the walkathon, I request that you visit the registration booth and collect. It's quite windy. I hope we still have some resources there. To go collect also your swag and your T-shirts for the walk. Since we will also have the possibility of rain, we want to ensure that this does not limit us from walking to the City Hall today. So we also have disposable ponchos for you to protect you from the rain. We will meet in the main lobby at 11, and then we'll have a quick group photo as we proceed to the City Hall. For those who choose not to participate in the walk, please feel free to stay back here at the resource fair, enjoy the refreshments, and take the opportunity to learn about the resources and connect with services at SIWA and with our other community partners. Before we disperse, I would like one last time to invite Rika Gadia for one more time for closing remarks.
Thank you, Ayo, for all the detailed instructions, for sure. So with this, now we come to the end of our presentation part. And as Ayodeji mentioned, that we have all these wonderful booths here to learn about the resources. So I thank you all for coming as well, taking this time today to make this a priority to learn about the resources. And I'm sure as you walk out of here, this room today, you will be equipped with so much more knowledge and resource, and even the actual contact numbers where you can connect families and who to connect, what to do. So I'm sure you will learn a lot about that. And so I really thank you, all of you, for doing that. And this is how we will all collectively break the cycle of violence. So, and I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the Government of Canada who funded this initiative. So we are able to do this kind of work. All our panel presenters once again, and also the wonderful agencies that are here today to showcase the resources that they have and share the resources for everyone to take away with them. And Gil from Day One Media, as you saw, the storyteller in the video. So although he is from Day One Media making the videos, but he's also been a wonderful storyteller, has been a very passionate promoter of the gender-based violence prevention message. So thank you, Gil, and your entire crew for everything that you do with us as well. And the team here at SIVA at the end for all the kind of supports and efforts and that they have done in the past few days and every day they do to make this work really happen and to execute these projects. So every single one of you, thank you so very much. And Ayodeji definitely for taking the lead on this project. So thank you. At the end, I would like to just request everyone to stand and maybe put your right step forward, just as a significance to make sure that we are all understanding that we are all champions and we will be taking this step forward. And I want you to say with me, let's walk together.
Let's walk together.
Take a step forward.
Take a step forward.
All right, that's what it is. And I'm so happy that you took that step forward. Thank you so much.